always has to be a shot at somebody.
I know.
They're never clean.
They have to run. That's the only shot they have.
They do it for 82 games. We're about to find out.
He already has shown what he's capable of.
Did surprise me. I thought we were going to hang in there.
This makes me think that we do need to be humble.
I actually think you're the only one who deserved that.
Yeah.
Wow. Back in the win column.
Let's go. Revenge.
Revenge win against the dreaded Jazz.
Does this count as revenge?
This would be a tough playoff series.
They avenged one of their losses this year, Noah. One of their...
Okay.
That was one you wanted. That was a loss that you wanted back. Let's be honest.
That was a crushing loss.
Hold on. Ahmed, I'm not done. Keep the music rolling. He's scrambling right now. He's scrambling to get the music. It's okay. How about this? Here we go. How about
Kids
this, though?
table, Jimmy.
Not much snow in Utah, I hear, but it was pretty white inside the arena tonight. A lot of white going around all over the place. Felt like snow. Derrick White with an unbelievable performance in Utah. 27, 7, 6, 7. I don't even know what sixes and what sevens go where anymore, but they were flying off the shelves. Derrick White was all over the place. Celtics with a big...
Did you write this, Jimmy?
I wrote that. 129 to 119 victory. Bobby Manning in the building. Noah Dalzell in the building. It's the kids table once again at the holidays. And guys, a bit of a slow start to this game, first quarter. Utah goes up. Feels like maybe it's going to be one of those games again. And then Garza comes in and has other plans, sets everything back the way it needs to be. Some hard picks, some, nice scoring at the rim, gets the Celtics within, striking distance. And then boom, that second quarter, back-to-back threes to start things off. Celtics don't really, and it was a nice back and forth game from there, but the Celtics don't really flounder like they did in that first quarter. Noah, what stood out to you in this one off the top?
I think Derrick White's the story tonight. 22 points in the second half for him. I just continue to be amazed by the way he takes over games in the fourth quarter. Even if he doesn't have it, even if he has been missing shots all night, it's like the fourth quarter starts and something in him is just different. And the shots that weren't falling all game start to fall. And obviously 7 blocks for him is just ridiculous. It feels like he's been on the verge of this kind of game for a while because he does alter more than 7 shots a game. But awesome game for him. And I thought this was the perfect way for Jaylen Brown's 30-plus point streak to end, tied with Larry Bird at 9 consecutive games. He was seeing a lot of doubles, even triples in this game, more bodies thrown at him than he has. I don't know if that's the appropriate term, but more bodies thrown at him than he's seen throughout most of the season. And he just made the right pass, finishes with 10 assists, was efficient in this game. Wasn't like he had a terrible shooting game, but if the streak was going to end, I thought this was a fitting way for that to happen.
Poetic. Yeah. Are you saying it's kind of poetry in a way?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. It's crazy. Basketball is a beautiful game. Bobby?
Jimmy's tired.
Jimmy, I want to know before you start, Bobby, when did you come up with the snowing white comment? Was it during the game? As it was coming out of your list?
Freestyle.
You know what it was? I thought about it and I was like, damn, the music ended. I was like, I gotta hit this. I gotta nail this one. I need the music. So then that's just, you guys saw like a...
Okay. I'm trying to understand like your creative process a little bit more.
Yeah. Just, you're seeing the genius like as it's happening,
Thank you.
Yeah. Bobby, you have the floor.
Yeah, I think you said it well, Noah. He was ready for this. The defense he was going to see, obviously coming out of the second half against Portland. We talked about it a ton last show, Jimmy, that the Blazers made a decision I feel like few teams, if any, have made this year in the second half of that game to say we're taking Brown out of this one as a scorer after he put up 27 in the first half. So you, one, had to imagine more teams would try to do that going forward after it worked. And two, we had Gary Washburn on Celtics Daily today, and he mentioned that game a couple of years ago where Utah threw everybody at Tatum and took him out of that game and made him a passer, and he had a big assist game with like scoring in the teens or something to that effect. So this is something that Will Hardy and the Jazz have done before, and they were willing to do it again here. I think he's even talked about how he likes that strategy against Brown and Tatum. making sure that other guys beat them and living with that. And obviously in this game, those other guys were able to do it. White here, Pritchard in the pick and roll, I thought was outstanding in this game. So other guys picked Brown up where he couldn't be as effective in this game. Simon's awesome performance from him here too. You didn't have anyone step up while Brown was getting taken out of the game, Jimmy. In fact, the decisive play of the game in many ways was a play where Portland trapped him at half court and Brown had nowhere to throw to and just had to throw it away. So in this game, much better job of having other guys line up matchups. Second half, I thought the offensive execution was outstanding. The push out of halftime, forcing the Jazz to call a timeout like 2 minutes into the third was awesome.
Yeah.
It was great. And then I thought the crunch time execution in this game was brilliant, separating late. So this is why you don't see it's easy to say, right? Why doesn't Tatum get doubled back when he was playing? And now Brown, it's like, why don't teams try to take him out of the game? There's still a wariness among these coaches, among these teams around the league of what Derrick White, Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, shooters across the board here can do when they're left open. And this is the result that the Jazz got in this game. And I think there's a lot of other interesting stuff from this one too, but that's definitely where my mind goes to, Noah, is how well Brown handled extra defensive attention in this game.
Yeah, it felt like Brown was missing some open look, missing some bunnies early on in this one. And the one thing I like is that it didn't feel like he forced it. He was missing open shots. And I think at some point, Derrick White kind of was feeling it. And Peyton Pritchard, we haven't mentioned him yet, but great game by Pritchard. So this is one of those games where in the second half, and really completely different than the game against Portland, where it was nobody but Brown, you had some players helping out here. And the one thing I liked about White was he was kind of playing the role of Jaylen a little bit with those 2-pointers, those shots inside the 3-point line, and 3-point shot was not falling in that first half. I think we started off 0 for 7, maybe something around that, but he just kept attacking. He just kept going after it. And he was contributing to winning basketball in all those other ways. We mentioned the 7 rebounds, the 7 blocks, career high 7 blocks for Derrick White. Previously was 6. And I put up a stat earlier. I already forget what it was, but it's some sort of record. Not only did he just set a new career high with 7 blocks, but he also tied the record for the most blocks by a guard in a game in NBA history. So safe to say there's no other guard with that stat line, considering Derrick White just tied for 7 blocks. So one of his best games, I would say, in his career. And on a night where Jaylen Brown wasn't able to
Crazy to think about.
Yeah, carry that scoring load that he's had to carry basically, the vast majority of the season. It was nice that you got that second half performance from Derrick White. I thought you had a great Peyton Pritchard game. And then we haven't mentioned it, but Anthony Simons continues to really, really, really contribute off the bench for the Celtics team, becoming one of the best plus-minus guys in the NBA. And when you think about how the season started for him and him trying to, which makes sense in a way, trying to find his role, trying to find a way to fit and a way to be comfortable. We're a few months in now, and it finally feels, Noah, that he can just kind of come in and do his thing.
Yeah, and I continue to maintain his defense has gotten a lot better from the beginning of the season. There's a noticeable improvement there. And plus 27 in a game where I think the second best plus minus was a plus 13 of any Celtics player. So to be able to be that impactful in your minutes, it's not a perfect stat. A lot of times it's who you're playing with. If you're playing with weaker lineups, etc., there's a reason why certain guys sometimes do better and worse in that category. But at the end of the day, they have been a much better team with him on the floor in the month of December, and credit to him, because I do think you're seeing strides in his game. And the 20 points, sometimes he hasn't had the most efficient games. Again, tonight, 6 of 15 is not a super efficient stat line, but he's hit some very timely shots. And we talk about it a lot, but there's not always analytics that measure momentum and measure timely shots. And he's hit some really timely shots this month in general, tonight, but also just throughout this win streak, or this, what are they now, 9-3 on the month? He has had a hand in a lot of these games. So yeah, definitely deserves credit for his performance in this one. And I thought in general, like you guys said, Peyton Pritchard and Derrick White each have 5 points in the first half, and they both really found a rhythm in the second. And I do think that it was them driving to the basket and getting their mid-range looks, their paint touches, is the kind of what helped turn things around for them. I mean, Peyton in that mid-range spot, in the paint, out of the restricted area. It's one of the most effective actions in the NBA right now. And it was super effective again tonight. And again, 1 of 7 from 3 for him. Derrick started 0 of 7 from 3. And yet both of them, when you look at their games in aggregate, they were really effective tonight. So they just found ways to, if the shot's not falling, they found other ways to impact the game. And I thought that we talked a lot about what went wrong on Sunday night. The backcourt needs to be really good. Tonight, the backcourt was really good. And that's what Jaylen needs alongside him.
For sure. Impressive to win a game too where you shoot 29% from 3. I think that stands out of this one too, is that they were able to get inside, as you talked about there, Jimmy and Noah. I love the aggressiveness in the second half. Ton of dribble penetration, ton of putting defenders in action who weren't able to guard them. Nurkic in particular. The pick and roll game was great. Thought Queta and Garza did a good job in that area. So this is good offensive execution in this game, even though shots didn't fall. They only end this one with 7 turnovers. They had, 19 the other night, Noah? So big improvement there. They forced a lot as well. Defense in this one, didn't love. There were moments where they got it together, but what makes this game more impressive to me is that they did not have answers for a lot of the Jazz players, and George in particular, right? Just around those handoffs, in the pick and roll actions with Nurkic,
George
even just attacking guys in isolation. I mean,
he's incredible.
He's a lot of fun, man.
I'll say this. I don't think the Celtics have had more trouble guarding a player individually than they did with George tonight all season, which is pretty impressive to think about. Like, they've been able to contain some stars, and they had Walsh on him early, right? He was lighting Walsh up. They went to some other stuff later in the game. They just never got control.
Even White was, as good of a game as White had. I mean, George had a couple wild hits on him.
He was sick.
Yeah.
He was questionable with an illness coming into this one. So impressive stuff from him. This is a tough team.
He was sick, all right.
He was. Yeah, I mean, this team's solid. It was funny hearing Austin Ainge go on the broadcast and be like, yeah, we're a long way away. Like, I'm sure Will Hardy didn't love to hear that. Like, they are trying so hard to be good.
Did listen to that. And it felt like more like Ainge was saying, like, they're a young team, they're not where he thinks they can be yet. And, it's an interesting situation for Utah, because I do think they actually are playing above expectations this year. And they have a very young team, but they've got young talent, like a young team, but guys that you can see
up and down the lineup. Walter Clayton, I loved in that draft. Dunks on White in this one. Filipowski has had some good games.
I mean, they even have Bailey playing tonight, another obviously big part of that team moving forward. So, and the interesting part of it is, do they want to be good? Is it too soon for them to be good? Because they obviously have that protected first round pick with Oklahoma City. I think it's top 8,
of course,
and they're right around that number. And I'm sure if you talk to Danny Ainge or Austin Ainge, they would want to make sure that they were below that, top 8 pick. They want the pick, right?
I hate protected picks.
That seems to be the new thing now, right? Yeah, a lot of people want to get rid of those.
I get it. It's just like that. There should not be an incentive for them to be even worse now, to lose that pick altogether. They've been bad for long enough. Utah fans deserve to see a functional basketball team. And honestly, this team has had some big time wins entering tonight. Beating the Pistons, beating the Spurs. I think that's the 2 games they're coming off of. Something that we overlook a little bit is when you look at, they're playing a sub 500 team. It's like, how has this team been playing lately? Like, the Brooklyn Nets have been awesome in the month of December. So if you're dealing with the Nets now versus dealing with the Nets in early November, like, that's 2 different situations. The Clippers have been streaking. Celtics face the Clippers this weekend. That's different than dealing with the Clippers a couple weeks back. So a lot of times it's about, when are you meeting with this team? And teams that are peaking or in a massive losing stretch, like the Cavs, we later realized that the wins that they racked up against Cleveland were amid like a really tough stretch of basketball. So it kind of contextualizes that. So I was impressed with Utah in stretches in this game. I think they have a lot of things to be excited about. They're not a bad team, even though their record's not great. And that's kind of the more you are around these teams, the more you realize, like, even the bad teams, like, they have so many talented players. They can go off at any given moment. And I agree with you, Bobby. I think Keyonte George was probably the most unstoppable player they faced so far this season.
And he had a great game against them earlier this year too. I remember watching him play and just being, wow, like, this guy's up and coming.
This is pretty similar to that first game. You're down early. You're struggling for a lot of it. You're in a close one late. It didn't go down to the last shot, obviously, like that Utah game did in Boston. But this was challenging, and you knew it was gonna be going into it. They just beat Detroit, as Noah said. They're playing better lately, so I actually felt like this was a quality win. Like, I'm not coming out of this one frustrated by some of the lapses or issues that you see in this one, and maybe some guys struggling in different parts of the lineup here. I think they did what they needed to do to win this game, and the right guys stepped up. They found the right lineups late as well, and overall, I think you're looking at the losses right now, and Noah and I talked about the Blazers game that night. Is this a concerning thing going forward, or is this just going to be a blip on the radar? And it feels like I think they've only had two-game losing streaks this year, and every time they've lost, they've been able to just break right out of that and move on and win and get back on track. So yeah, they have weaknesses. They're going to be certain teams that expose them more than others, but they are continuing to push the right buttons every night and finding the guys to step up and adapting to the game as it progresses. The coaching just continues to impress me here in terms of how they attack other teams and ease into games and figure things out on the fly. I don't get concerned when I see them down in some of these games like they were tonight.
I agree. And I do feel like there's a difference between how they were moving against a team like this 6 weeks back to now. And it's not the best time I can say this because Sunday night was kind of a late game collapse, but in general, I felt pretty good about their chances to pull this game off the entire fourth quarter. Like, even when it was a couple possession game, it felt like they had pretty good control of it. And we know things can change quickly, but they were just making good decisions there, especially offensively. If they were making, Derrick with the ball in his hand was a good call for them for a lot of that stretch. When Jaylen just came back in, I think 7 minutes into that quarter. So that other unit without Jaylen really held it down for a long stretch. And then he comes in and hits 3 mid-range jumpers in like 2 minutes. So, he kind of gave them exactly what they needed to close this off. But it just feels like they are, that chemistry is building and they do kind of know how to have more poise in these moments than they did earlier in the season. They lost a lot of clutch games to begin the year that I think they felt like we were right there. Now we're 0-3. Now we're whatever they were, 2-5. But, and they felt like they were right there. And now we're kind of seeing them pull out those wins a little bit more.
When you look, okay, here's a question for both of you guys. Are the Celtics more this team or are they not more the team on Sunday?
Sunday.
But when you watch both performances, do you get lower after a loss or higher after a win? Or I imagine Noah's going to tell me she doesn't do either.
No, I can answer that question. I think this kind of game, we didn't learn anything. We didn't learn anything very new about this team after this game. I thought this was just a solid win. Sunday night was an aberration, the way they turned the ball over. Like, that is not Celtics basketball.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that they take care of the ball. The fact that they had 20 turnovers in that game and the way they turn those live ball turnovers, things that they don't do. That's why I didn't really want to harp on it too much because they just did it one time. It's not a trend. It's not how they play.
Right.
Yeah, and it's not like they've been playing like that for a long time. Like, it was one game, and here they are today. They took great care of the ball. There were things to learn and things to like about this game, which is why we'll do our post-game content. But I didn't feel like this game, another game really swayed me, but I feel like those kinds of losses where it's just not how you've been consistently losing, it just happens,
That sounds like Joe. It just happens.
It does, yeah.
I do think you can pull things from these games. That was one of my least favorite Joe quotes when he was like, turnovers, it just happens. But anyway,
technically it does just happen, but there were other things. There was more to it than just turnovers, right? I mean, it was one of those games where you just weren't getting any help. Jaylen Brown just wasn't getting any help in that game, and that's really was one of the fears going into the season. Where that if Jaylen Brown couldn't do it all. But by the way, he's done even more than I think many of us thought. But if you couldn't do it all, you were going to find yourself in some trouble. And I think Sunday night resembled that. That was almost like reality. Again, it was just a game. And to Noah's point, it isn't how they've typically played. But that's kind of why I asked the question, because when you see a game like that, it kind of makes you feel like, okay, well, it's possible for them to play like this. Maybe not the 20 turnovers, but in situations where maybe the regression to the means could potentially take place at some point for some of these guys who have been scoring at a better clip.
Yeah, and I think we're in agreement that this is a good team, at the very least, the Celtics here. And I think that makes you say that a game like this is more representative of who they are than the Portland one. We haven't seen many games like the Portland one, as Noah said there. So I also think we know at this point in the season, certainly I do, after some of the mistakes I've made going into certain matchups, that they're not just going to roll over anybody. Like if you don't play well, if you're not locked in, if you're doing stupid stuff, frankly, down the stretch, so like White's turnovers in that Portland game in crunch time, you're going to lose to anybody. And you easily could have lost this game if you didn't lock in and turn it around coming out of half. I mean, their finish to the second quarter was pretty awful. So they turned it around. They were losing at halftime, came out with a great start to the third, figured things out in terms of how they had to attack Utah's defense. And they won a hard-fought game. And I'm sure the Sacramento game is going to be hard-fought for a lot of it. And Noah mentioned how good the Clippers are playing of late. All these games are going to be tough. And you might get going from three, and on a night where you're shooting 40-45% from three, you might be able to separate from some teams here. But no, the margin for error is slim, and you need the hustle. You need to find the guys who are making the plays and getting to the loose balls as they've had. And, I think there's an interesting discussion coming out of these last couple of games about where Ugo's at and where Walsh is at, who I felt had a pretty lackluster performance in this one again. Garza is pushing Queta hard. I've been talking about that for the last week or two here. So, I mean, there's some competition. There's some evaluation, I'm sure, of these rotations and how things are going. Third straight DNP for Josh Minot. What's the future hold for him in terms of his role on this team? There's a lot of interesting stuff going on right now outside of the Browns and Pritchards and Whites of the world. So, I do think this game is interesting to me for a couple of reasons. That and the fact that, we're getting in that part of the season now where teams are saying, all right, let's take Brown out of the game. And how are the Celtics going to fare? How's Brown going to fare as that happens more often? Obviously, that's the life Tatum lived at the head of the snake for this team and adapted to score and facilitate well out of that position. Now, Brown, can he keep the turnovers down? Can he make the right play over and over again? Can he still score 20 even with that level of defensive attention? And tonight he did.
Do you think that's what's happening now?
That's what's going to happen here.
Why do you think
forward,
it took 30 games?
Because I think teams are scared of the shooting. They're scared of who this team's been the last couple of years. They're so willing to take
They're
those
way
open
different
threes.
from the last.
They are,
years.
but you're still evaluating things. Like, even though White's struggling, do you want to give him good looks? Probably not. Pritchard's a guy more and more over the last couple of years here teams have had to account for and key in on, and he has struggled for a lot of this season. So I think, as the 3-point shooting has settled in a pretty mediocre spot for this team, if I'm an opposing coach, I am saying take Brown out of this thing and make these other guys hit shots. Hauser has not shot well this year. Pritchard has not shot well from three for a lot of this season. I'm living with those guys beating you. If I'm Utah, I'm living with what you did in this game. And, it's tough to beat the Celtics team, and I thought they did a pretty good job of trying to defend them the way they did. I think letting Brown go for 40 is the wrong move, but I don't know. You're going to see different approaches, I'm sure, Noah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've seen him be doubled more in the last two games than I think probably in any 2-game stretch of the season. It feels that way, at least. I don't know if that's statistically
They're
accurate.
saying we're obsessed with threes. I've seen that comment a bunch.
We're obsessed with threes?
I guess.
I don't know what that means. But the reality is that Jaylen knows how to make the right read. And tonight he had some really tough spots where he was like trapped on the baseline, kicked it out to the right player. Like he made some difficult passes out of difficult situations. And granted, there are teams that have better defensive players than Utah's players, and maybe they could have cut off a passing angle a little bit better or trapped him half a second before. But Jaylen, for the most part, I think is pretty comfortable reading those double teams. And so if teams want to start doing that, I don't know that it's going to hurt the Celtics. At the same time, I also wouldn't let him keep scoring 40 and be as efficient as he's been. So I understand trying different things, but I wouldn't be afraid of that if I was Jaylen or if I was Joe or if I was the Celtics, this idea that teams are going to guard him a little bit differently now, considering how he's playing. And the reality is a lot of people thought going into the season, I don't know if coaches thought this, but a lot of people thought that if Jaylen Brown's going to be the number one option on the Celtics and he's going to take a ton of shots, this team's not going to be great. And instead, this team has had one of the most efficient offenses in NBA history. And they've been one of the best offenses in the NBA for most of the season now. And so maybe teams that felt comfortable giving Jaylen single coverages a month ago are now looking and saying, wait a second, this offense is awesome. So let's try something this offense hasn't seen a whole lot of. So I do think it's going to keep happening. And you might see more of these like 10 assist nights that he doesn't historically have a ton of, but he's in position to get a lot more of those now.
And why is that, Noah? Because I continue to be baffled by it. We keep looking at it and saying they're not shooting great from three. They don't cut. They don't do a lot of these different things.
I mean, two things.
Pace.
They don't turn the ball over, and they crash the offensive glass. They're like top 7 in offensive rebound. They're the best, the lowest in turnovers at any team in the NBA. I think them and the Thunder have been kind of neck to neck. So those two things, and they've been very efficient from the spots that they've been high volume. You know, their mid-range prowess this season has been incredible. From a viewer standpoint, this offense is so aesthetically pleasing. For anything like me and love watching mid-range shooting, like seeing Peyton Pritchard get to those spots, seeing Jaylen Brown like with these kind of more old-fashioned looks you don't see a ton of in the NBA anymore. Like those shots have been effective for them, but really the reason why this offense has managed to be where it's at is not turning over the ball and creating extra possessions. Like they're not always the most efficient team, but they get more shots off than their opponents almost every game.
Yeah, I think
real quick, Jimmy, there was an old school play Scal was raving about that I love too, where they threw it down to Brown on the block and Queta cut. And I love, speaking of the way the offense is starting to expand and grow now, I love the way they're involving Queta. It was either a handoff guy or just getting him a touch in the lane, or even just, there's a play early in this game where Pritchard's stuck. He just drops it off to him. And I feel like there's one play every night now where Queta just catches it quick on a drop off and just tosses up this little push shot. And it goes in like every time. And, you're starting to look up at the box score and see him have 10, 12 points every night too, which I think is a nice, steady, consistent thing to have in this offense. It was frustrating for me. It was frustrating, I know, for a lot of the chat viewers here that they wouldn't even look at him early this season. Now the last couple of nights here, remember that hook shot he hit in Portland, Noah, and rolling layup. After rolling layup, they're getting him in stride there. He makes nice passes when he gets stuck out of there too. A lot to love from Queta now too, and it's just another layer of this offense, Jimmy. And I don't know, do you watch it, Jimmy, and say like this offense is dominant? Because that's not how I necessarily feel, but they are.
I don't look at it and say they're dominant, but going back to what Noah said, aesthetically pleasing is a nice way to put it, because I've really actually, believe it or not, and I never thought I would say this, I've actually really enjoyed watching their offense this year. And when I compare it to previous years, I like this style of offense way more. It's just more entertaining. It's more, it keeps me engaged a little bit more. I'm not just waiting for the swing pass to another 3-point shot. I mean, they shot horrible from threes tonight. When you go down the line, Derrick White missed a bunch. Peyton Pritchard missed a bunch. Hauser missed a bunch. They still shot over 50% from the field. And that's because they're not living and dying by the 3-point shot, which it felt like they had been over the last couple of seasons. And it drives fans crazy. And I know it turned a lot of casual fans off too. I'm not sure how many of them are paying attention because they feel that this is a, gap year or a bridge year or whatever they want to call it. But I think if you were a casual, you would really enjoy watching the way this team plays basketball on both ends of the court, and watching the way they, work for things on offense. And even Peyton Pritchard tonight, as bad as he shot from three, he was all over the place inside, the 3-point line tonight. Some really crafty moves to the rim. So a nice little step back. It looked like he made like 3 little dekes and the turnaround jumper. They were just silk. So, that's the type of stuff that I think is interesting to watch. And that's the creativeness that you really want to see from the Celtics team. And they need to be creative, right? Because I think if they were to just live and die by, 3-point shots, then they wouldn't be anywhere close to where they are today. And I give Jaylen Brown a huge amount of credit for that, obviously. And, Noah, you mentioned the 10 assists for him tonight. Perfect example of, I think, the type of player Jaylen Brown is now that I don't know if he was a couple years ago, where it felt like, regardless of why, it felt like he was more of a player that was just kind of in there to do his own thing. I wouldn't say that he was instrumental in making players around him better, and that might not be always his fault. It might just been the position that he was put in, the players who were around him. But now that when he's given an opportunity to do more, I think he's doing it, and he's at least acknowledging like, hey, if they're going to bring 2 guys onto me, I'm going to find the open man. We're going to make the extra pass. And he ends up with 10 assists tonight on a night where, yeah, sure, I'm sure he would have loved to have had 30 points or more. But if he can't have it, at least he's affecting the game by, spreading the love out a little bit, spreading the ball around, and getting other players engaged and getting other players going. Because if he's not going, it's kind of on him to try to get some of his teammates going. And so White, Pritchard, we mentioned them a couple of times tonight, but I think those guys are obviously instrumental to keep things going in the right direction. But I don't mind this Jaylen Brown stat line at all. In fact, I love it. 10 assists, 6 rebounds. He's averaging more assists this year than he has his entire career on a team that is probably the least talented that he's been on, right? So, meaning it's hard. Theoretically, it would be harder for guys to score around him, but he's obviously got talented players in White and so on and so forth. But I just like the way he's getting other players involved.
What's interesting? Sometimes I look at, the intention of scoring and the intention of playmaking as like two different mindsets. Of sometimes a player might be in the mindset of like, I'm going to go get mine, and other times they're looking to make others better. And I've kind of moved away from that thinking, because the more like, and I think it's fine that we talk like that, but the more I'm around this game, the more I'm around the Celtics, the more I realize that it's really just about making the right read. And so if the right read is a pass, then the players are supposed to make the pass. It's not that they're more selfish if they don't make the pass. It's just that the right read was to shoot, And so every decision that Jaylen makes now, and he has the ball in his hands so much more, his usage rate is one of the highest in the NBA. I think that he's number 2 behind Luka, right? He has so many more reads to make, and a lot of times the right read is to go get a bucket, right? Go to the mid range and drive to the basket, get fouled. Like, that's the right read. And so it's not necessarily selfish to go do that, but in tonight's game, the right read was to go make a pass. And so while we might look at that as like, oh, he's willing to make his teammates better, like, wow, so noble that he wasn't like obsessed with the streak continuing. All it is just him making the right decision with the ball in his hands. And he studied this game. He watches a ton of film. We see him in practice all the time, working with
Celtics
5-6
University
coaches. Just, different guys doubling him. They have all the player development coaches working with him after practice. And all he's doing is just trying to figure out, when should I pass? When should I drive? When should I shoot? And it's like, that's kind of what NBA basketball is all about. It's just about that. And I asked them.
Yeah, but there's a lot of players that aren't doing that, right?
Because I don't think they have the IQ or the experience to know how to make that read. I mean, when we say Tatum has figured out the game, I think Jason Tatum is a perfect example of this. Like, he just figured out the last couple of years when to pass, when to drive, when to pull up, when to shoot. And like, people can get frustrated that he takes a few more threes than they would like, but for the most part, Tatum's like accuracy as far as making the right decision is incredible. Like, that's what makes him great.
Let me break in on that quick too, because we've done a lot of. Yeah, go ahead.
Let Noah finish her thought.
No, I was going to say, the last thing I was going to say is I asked Jaylen a couple weeks ago about like, oh, you had a bunch of assists tonight. Like, is it rewarding to make your teammates like score baskets? Like, I was kind of thinking maybe that he had a mindset of like, oh, it feels great to set up Queta and Garza. And he literally just said like, all it was that, like, those were the right reads. Like, I wasn't like trying to like be a playmaker today. And that's what's different about the Celtics versus some other teams where you see a guy who has the ball in their hands a lot and they're like, regularly tallying high assist games, like a Trae Young, where he's trying to set guys up. That's not really what's happening here, but it's why their offense is so effective.
Yeah, okay. We've had that conversation a little bit or I think they asked me on Celtics Beat, when I was on a couple of days ago, like, how would this team look with Tatum running the show? Where would their record be with him in Brown's position, compared to what Brown's doing right now? And I think it's an interesting thought. Like, what would it look like with just Tatum and no Brown? And obviously we're seeing what it's like with Brown and no Tatum here. But, you mentioned that 3-pointer and the settling that we saw from Tatum. There is none of that with Brown. Like, you never see him just to launch a shot up, and I know that's part of Tatum's responsibility when they're both available. And I understand why he's asked to do it in a way. Like, I don't always think it's him just launching up a shot, because those have been some frustrating possessions in the past for this team. And I hate to say it because there's so many things I love about Tatum. I can't stand that sometimes, just to, come up, bounce around a screen, launch a 3. And you don't see that from Brown as much. You do see an urgency for him to attack, to break open the basket, to move the ball out of those positions. And, I know we've had this debate a lot this year, Noah, like, is it better to step into the mid-range, or is it more efficient? Is it, just a way to get going? And there just does seem to be a rhythm to Brown's game, a feel for it in terms of getting himself going that Tatum doesn't always have. Like, I think Tatum's great at commanding the flow of the offense, and he makes such great reads, and I think he's a brilliant passer, and I've always felt that way about him. Brown has come a long way with it, but that's where Tatum is a better player than him. Brown is a better scorer, I'd say, in terms of just his feel for how to get points. And that can be for himself, that can be for others, but that just comes with aggressiveness. And I feel like he's always on the attack. I feel like he's always trying to create openings for himself. He's so assertive at getting to his spots. And listen, I'm not trying to do a whole Brown Tatum comparison here, but I do want to emphasize the ways that Brown, even though you might not necessarily call him a better or as good of a player as Tatum, is better at some other key areas that I feel like do make this team a little bit more aesthetically pleasing to watch. I don't know if it makes them better, and it's obviously best to have both of them, but I do feel like Brown gets a little undersold sometimes in terms of the things he's great at. And there's some key areas where I feel like we're seeing him shine because of the fact that he's allowed to feel out the game throughout. And I think, like, you bring up a lot of good points there, Noah, about like the areas that he has worked on behind the scenes and hasn't had the opportunity to show up from. And I know he's not trying to make this year about that. And I feel like he almost gets underrated a little bit in terms of like the narrative around this team and his, where he's at around the league. I know he was like sixth in voting in the All-Star coming into today. The guy is just a brilliant player, and I think he's showing this year. He's right up there with like the other 10, 15 best players in the league. Like, he is in that mix, and I don't know how many people felt that way coming into this year. Like, that's where I'm at on him at this point. Like, he's just that good.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with him kind of exceeding most people's expectations, maybe not his own, but people did not project that this was going to be the kind of basketball that he was going to be playing consistently. I will say, as far as to my boring point about making reads, as much as people don't like seeing Tatum take those threes, it oftentimes is the right read for him and for the Celtics because he is more efficient from there. He's better from three. If you look at the numbers of him versus mid-range shooting, like, he's great at attacking the basket. Like, that's probably what I'd like to see him do the most. But the threes are not a bad shot for Tatum, and I think it becomes a little bit of a overblown narrative that he settles for those. Like, maybe there's a couple per game that you'd like to cut out, but like, you could kind of do that with literally any great player. Like, you could do the same thing with Jaylen and say the couple of you're muted.
I was just gonna say Brown doesn't do that.
No, but because that's not his thing. He doesn't like shooting threes. Like, he never wanted to shoot a lot of threes. He likes shooting mid-range shots. He took 3 tonight, right? Mm-hmm. So my point is that, like, if that's the weakness of his game, that he attempts like maybe a handful too many of those, like, Jaylen has his things too, right? Whether that's maybe
we've
one or
talked
two
about that
drive.
with Tatum forever. Like, would he be able to step in to 10, 15 feet and just find a rhythm or make shots if the three's not there? And because we've watched
statistically, though, he's better. Statistically, he's better as a mid-3-point shooter. Like, if you look at the numbers, like, he was in the 30s for the mid-range shot last year, 30%. So if you're in the 30s, I think he was like 39% from the mid-range. And then he was like, 35% from three? Like, the three is a better shot, if those are your numbers. And it's also about what it opens up for him and other guys on the floor that he's a 3-point shooter.
And that's where I agree, yeah.
And, being like he was, at the end of the day, he was the hub of like a historically efficient offense. So again, I really don't want to be having this conversation, but I think it's just important to contextualize, like, maybe a couple of threes per game that people don't enjoy seeing, like what it actually did for the Celtics offense in recent years. And for him, the numbers are different. Like, Jaylen's efficiency in the mid-range is way now like 10 percentage points better than Tatum's was last year. So it's a different shot, right? It has a different value. Like, the reason Jaylen's mid-range shot is so effective and why we love seeing it is because it's going in.
Right.
So
and that's why I asked.
Yeah.
Like, we'll see Tatum score 30 for 2 games, then he'll miss every shot for a couple games. And like, there's just a variance to the 3-point reliance. And I know it like all comes out in the wash long term, but I just think of the way Brown's been able to get going every single night here for the most part. And it does make me think a little bit like there just are some of those games where Tatum looks like he's in agony trying to put the ball in the basket. And I think a greater shot diet balance could do him a little well. Because listen, I think the shooting numbers are valid there, but isn't there something, Noah, to if you take more of those, if you worked at them more, you'd be a little better at them? Because I don't think it's that Tatum's bad at mid-ranges necessarily. It's that he's just gone so far away from that being a big part of his game.
Why don't we talk about Tatum's shot diet more when he's coming back? I can't get deeper into Tatum's shot diet right now.
Yeah, Bobby,
what did you think?
What did you do when I was away?
20-12. I can't.
Jimmy, we're watching Jaylen score 30 points in his sleep right now, shooting mid-range.
Not tonight.
And I'm like, yeah, because he had to pass more.
They're different players. Like,
yeah, they are different. And don't forget, Bobby, he's able to do
they've
it.
been similar as far as true shooting and like I think Tatum was more efficient than him in the last couple of years. My point is like what they each do works for them. They don't need to have like the same shot profile.
No, I'm just asking for a few more Tatum mid-ranges every game. That's all I'm really asking for out of this conversation.
Well, I got a conversation for you. A reminder that our show is brought to you by PrizePicks, our very good friends at PrizePicks. Download PrizePicks and use the code CLNS to get $50 off your first $5 lineup. This episode is going to go down in the books because of PrizePicks. Whether you're starting a new routine or making player picks for the first time, trying something new can be hard, but in life and on PrizePicks, it always feels good to be right. With high-pressure playoff matchups every weekend and elite hoop action almost every night, the action never stops, and PrizePicks lets you take control. It's as simple as downloading the app, logging in, typing in the code, and getting started, folks. It really is that simple. We got new features here. They have early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, and you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. I know pretty much everybody's fantasy football league wrapped up yesterday. I'm not even sure if Bobby, did you pull it off?
Champions!
He's the champion.
Yeah.
If you're a champion, congratulations. If not, better luck next year. But regardless, you can still keep the fantasy sports going over on PrizePicks because it's not over there. You don't have to wait until next year. You can just draft another team tonight, even tomorrow, whenever you want. Get ready for Sunday all over again. PrizePicks lets you play fantasy football every week. And in the playoffs, pick your favorite players. And when they hit their projections every week, no draft is required. There's also a cool community on PrizePicks with the new social feeds feature. You can share your picks with your friends, copy lineups from winners with a single click, copy lineups you like, or use them as inspiration for your own picks. You can even follow PrizePicks partners like Bobby Manning, for example. Apparently, he's a fantasy expert. Taylor fade his picks with just one click. So download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. And it's good to be Bobby Manning. It's always good to be Bobby Manning, but it's especially good to be Bobby Manning tonight because he's graced with the presence of me, the presence of Noah, and the presence of all our viewers over on the Celtics All Access YouTube page, which, by the way, if you're there right now, get a very good look at it. Take a picture because you will not see this live stream on Celtics All Access ever again after tonight. So talk about history. We're moving over to the main CLNS media page. You see the little lower third graphic right there for you. This show will be live on that page after every Celtics game the way it is. We also do a bunch of other live content on that page. Celtics All Access is going to stay Celtics All Access. It's just not going to have our live show. We want to have one place for everybody to jump on over to the live show. You can talk all on the same, if you're on the YouTube page, you can all talk within the same chat features. There's not two different chats going at once and people getting all confused. So this is the last night, the last game of us being on Celtics All Access. Still subscribe to Celtics All Access because you're going to get tons of Celtics content there, plenty of podcasts, plenty of post-game sound and video and pregame and everything else. But you're going to get our show, specifically the Garden Report, will be on the Celtics CLNS, will be on the main CLNS media page. You get all that, guys? Bobby, Noah, you clear? You subscribe?
The thing is that we've been saying this for weeks, and for some reason people aren't doing it though, because there's still like 2,000 people watching on the other one every episode.
I know. I feel like
so.
Maybe
I don't know. I'm like getting nervous. Does everybody understand what that means?
They'll figure.
Like I feel like we need to do
We'll
like
figure it out.
Yeah, it's like a fire drill. Like we're gonna. You know, I wish Amit knew how to like pull the plug on the. Maybe he does. He could just prematurely end the Celtics CLNS stream so that everybody has to go find.
It's not a bad idea.
Do that?
On the page.
I don't know.
I don't want to give him. I don't want to give him that idea because I'll probably get yelled at. But that would be a smart way to do it because we're not going to exist on January 2nd. This podcast won't exist on the Celtics All Access.
So I guess if you're an All Access viewer, you just won't see it there, and then it doesn't mean the show doesn't exist. It just means
no, the show's going nowhere.
You got to go to the other channel.
The show is going nowhere. So, anyways, that's the final time I have to make that spiel, actually. So that's cool. I don't have to do that anymore. And also, we've got Bruins. We got the Bruins YouTube page. We got the Patriots, which is going to be fire over the next few weeks. A lot of Patriots news, some bad news today, unfortunately, but typically it's not bad. We'll let the Patriots guys dig into that. I don't want to touch it because I don't want to say the wrong thing. But anyways, we'll jump back to the Celtics here. All right, gun ahead, Brown or Tatum? No, you first.
That was not what I was doing.
I know, but it was heading there, so I'm glad we moved away. What else from this game? I know you're not going to take too much from it, but I mean, another game where Hauser's kind of off the mark. Are we concerned about the outside shooting as a whole on this team? Because it seems like it's not getting better. It seems like it's actually trending maybe in.
I can't understand it. It's the most baffling thing I've probably covered with this team is this team's 3-point shooting. Like certain guys are just on fire at times, but the team as a whole is stuck in the middle to bottom tier, bottom 10 in that category. They've floated around mediocre status from it all year. I don't know. You're missing Tatum. You've lost some key shooters on this roster. You have your Simons and Hauser. We should talk about Simons at some point here before the show ends. He was great tonight.
You mentioned him in the beginning, but we'll talk about him again. But
Yes, I don't like. Where are you at on the 3-point shooting? though? I can't figure it out.
I don't think there's anything to figure out. Like, it's just the variance of basketball. The question is, can you? I think they're getting good looks.
So this is just who they are.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're an elite 3-point shooting team the way they were in the last couple seasons. And at this point, I think the encouraging thing is that they find ways to win games even when the 3-point shot is not falling, which at times the frustration with the Celtics was like the Knicks series, right? Like what happens when threes aren't falling? Now they're setting a record for most misses in playoff games or whatever the things were that they were nearing in those playoff losses against New York last year. So a night like tonight, the threes weren't falling and they find other ways to get going. Like that's what I want to see from this team. Peyton Pritchard over the course of his career, Derrick White over the course of his career, these guys are good 3-point shooters. Sam Hauser is a great 3-point shooter. I mean, they all are, all three of those guys.
That's what I'm talking about.
So the fact that it's been a couple month period, like it happens. You look at Al Horford's numbers. He's had down seasons. Malcolm Brogdon came to Boston and was like on fire. The year before that, he couldn't shoot. Like this is just what happens in the NBA. It's perplexing. It's why if you're really consistent from outside, it's such a valuable skill. Because it matters so much and it's so hard to be consistent there. I mean, everybody who's like, other than like Steph Curry, and even he has bad nights, like everybody goes through these ups and downs, which is why the ability to get to the line and to get to the basket and do these other things is so important. Like you can always crash the offensive glass. You can always take care of the ball. Those things don't have to fluctuate the way that the 3-point shooting inevitably does. So I like that about tonight's win. I think in general, I'll keep my eye on how do they respond to games where they're not shooting well. Can Peyton keep going to the paint? Like maybe that's a blessing that came out of his early season shooting struggles was that he had to really turn to that shot as a staple. And now I saw today that he's like a top 8 isolation scorer in the NBA this season. Like that has been one of the most effective actions of any action was a Peyton Pritchard ISO. And that's because he's not settling for threes. He's doing that. So I did think this team was going to be a better 3-point shooting team. That was like actually the thing that was the most encouraging to me about this roster was they had so many guys that in theory could be really good 3-point shooters. It hasn't quite translated that way. But at the same time, some of the guys that weren't expected to be great shooters have been shooting above their weight, like Luka Garza and Ugo and Jordan. So it kind of has balanced out. I think it's going to continue to trend upwards for the high volume shooters that are just shooting a little bit below their normal numbers.
Yeah, and as you've mentioned, they're still one of the best offenses in the league, if not the best at this point in the season. So they haven't needed it necessarily, and the offensive rebounding does counteract that a little bit. And I think that does go underrated among fans who hate the threes a little bit, is the fact that they do grab a lot of those misses and turn those into points. They've done a brilliant job with it this season, and that's where you give the Garzas and Ugos and Walshes of the world credit. Garza was great tonight, again, I thought, in that department. A couple really tough putbacks, a couple and ones on them. He is just in a great place when it comes to his energy off the bench. And, he's obviously had better games in this one over the last week or two. But after, I thought, struggling in Portland, he was better tonight. Queta was awesome in that department. So they have good balance on the floor. They really do. And
isn't it interesting how the hierarchy of the bench continues to change? Like it seems like week to week you could reorder the order, like the order of importance of these guys, or who's Joe's favorite right now. It seems like it's like right now you're basically saying it's probably like Garza and Simons are probably the two most effective guys off the bench right now, and maybe a few weeks ago they might have been dead last, right? As for the players that get playing time, at least.
Which is funny because earlier in the season, those two guys had the lowest plus minuses on the team. I saw a lot of stuff online about them being like the tank commanders. When Anthony Simons and Luka Garza come check in, like they're the tank commanders. And tonight's game, Anthony's a plus 27. Luka is the second best. He's a plus 13. Luka with 15 points on what was he? 6 rebounds, 6 of 8 from the field. You give up a little bit on the defensive end with him. Like I do think that there were some plays down the stretch where he was getting a little, he was getting exploited a little bit, but everything in basketball is a trade-off, especially when you're playing a lot of minimum.
He's playing better defense too, by the way.
Definitely better defense. Yeah, I think both of those guys, like there's not a big defensive decline when they're on the floor the way there was earlier in the season. And if you can get 15 points out of him in 18 minutes, like that's a huge win. Like I don't want to overlook that, right? And efficiently too, like 6 of 8 shooting. We talked a lot about Jaylen Brown scores 40 and where else are they getting offense, and the backcourt has to be on, and Derrick and Peyton had big time second halves, but if you can get 20 from Anthony and Luka, 15 from Luka, or it's not always going to be that much, but it's a great thing for them. His 3-point shot has been on all season, right? Like that's been a consistent even earlier in the year when he was barely playing. Like
pretty amazing.
And that was his like pitch, right? That he was going to be a good 3-point shooter in the NBA, and it hasn't quite translated until the season. So
sorry,
what happened, Jimmy?
I want to see him shoot him more. Yeah, and he's he has a good feel for when to go inside, when to shoot.
Hated your answer.
And then one other thing to say, Baylor Scheierman playing the first half of the fourth quarter. How many times have we seen that this season where Joe just trusts him in these moments? And you look at the stat line, I mean, 0 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist, 3 fouls. You would think like maybe it was a disaster. It really wasn't. He drew a couple fouls on rebounds. He's in the right spot. Yeah. And it's like, it's pretty amazing to me because Joe, everybody else is in and out of the rotation. Jordan plays 13 minutes tonight. He played 9 the other day. Jordan doesn't play in the fourth year at all. Josh has been 3 consecutive DNPs. Baylor has survived the bench shuffle. He's just the only guy that's like solid. He always plays. He gets his 10, 12 minutes. And I don't know why, but it's just something.
He's consistent.
He's consistent. And when I asked Joe about it, I asked him like, what has allowed him to thrive in these moments where like it's really hard for guys to come in and play 3 minutes or play 10 minutes a game. And he said it's because he's so confident. And obviously like the work ethic and all the usual stuff. But what stood out to me in his answer is he's very confident. Like his confidence does not waver. And I don't know if that's true for the other guys. I don't know if all those guys that are battling for minutes, if they have a bad game where they get yanked, like does it impact them a little bit more? He's 25. They're like 19, 21, and 22, right? Like maybe that's a part of it as well. So it's just interesting because he has been the one guy that has not been a part of Joe's like bench changes, I guess. It's just he constantly gets those opportunities.
I think it's because his role is when he's out there, it's probably just I don't even know. Just don't
Make
screw
the
up.
right pass, dive for a ball.
Yeah, I mean,
Defend.
why not
And he's
Jordan in
defending.
that
we're
fourth
talking
quarter?
about
Why
a guy
not-
that didn't take a shot tonight. He didn't take a shot.
Yeah.
No
No,
steals.
he is doing
no-
a few things in those minutes though that are
I
productive.
think I see myself in Baylor in like my adult basketball career. Maybe that's why I like talking about his
I know you're
minutes.
captivated by
I'm
his
like,
role.
like I had a game tonight, like 2 points, 2 rebounds.
Jimmy's
but I
like,
feel like
you scored
I make
0
good
points.
plays, you know? Yeah.
I mean,
like,
He
look at the stat
All I see
line.
are zeros.
I know,
barely,
but watching him,
his
did you
game
not
will
feel?
barely be recorded in basketballreference.com.
But you guys know what I'm saying? I'm not saying, oh, he was so awesome tonight. I'm just noting that he keeps getting these fourth
Sure.
quarter.
No, I'm noticing it
Getting
too.
He
opportunities.
could have played Jordan Walsh in that fourth quarter. He
I
didn't.
don't know what it is about Walsh either. He's not playing early in
Is
these
it
games.
more to
and
do
he's
with?
just
Let me ask you this,
disappearing.
Noah. Is Baylor playing tonight more to do with Baylor or more to do with?
With Baylor, because
Walsh
there's like 5 guys
or-
that could have taken those minutes.
That's
Yeah,
my
for
point.
sure.
Is he basically telling those guys like, hey, you're not cutting it right now. I'm putting Baylor in.
I don't know.
Like,
I mean, I don't think
Wal-
it's like Baylor is like your punishment. I think he trusts
Oh.
Baylor in those moments. Like Baylor's performance is the same all the time. I think other guys maybe they have good nights and bad nights.
I'm not sure. Okay, I know you're saying that.
Jimmy,
as it's a
you
good
are
thing.
such a Baylor hater.
I'm not a hater. I'm just
No,
wanting
I-
to hear yourself. Like,
What?
I know
might
what you're
be
saying, Noah.
okay.
Okay,
might be
I feel
okay
like
if it's-
maybe I'm not communicating this well. Are people understanding what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. You're saying he's not asked to do a lot, but he's doing what he's asked to do, and he's doing it.
His
and that's why he
energy level
continues
is
to do it.
consistent. His execution is consistent. He's not featured
There
in
it
the
is.
offense. He's not taking on the most difficult defensive assignments. But I think you're seeing more fluctuation in
He
what
is
the other
like
guys are bringing, which is why he continues to get those opportunities.
he is
but-
definitely like
Obviously, you want more from him. You want him to score the ball. You want him to handle. You want him to do the things that he's been advertised to do. He hasn't been doing those things. But
yeah,
yeah.
it's tough,
like
right? Because you do
player
commend
B
the
in
guy.
a video game. Like doesn't have his last name in the video game, and he's just
Yeah.
like his attributes are just kind of like 4 out of 10 across the board.
That's what I wonder, and I don't know. It's tough because you like Joe's goal every night is just do anything you can to win. Like I don't think with a role like Scheierman's right now, it's with some long term thinking in mind, or where's this going to put Scheierman in the long run? And
no, he just
that
wants
is
to maximize the fourth quarter minutes.
Amit
Yeah.
is refusing to make a lower third for Baylor Scheierman, and honestly, I can't really blame him. I'm not even sure what he would put.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'll
This
wrap-
became
I'll
like
wrap
a
up
trolling thing. I was trying to just.
Baylor got
wrap
12
up.
minutes of playing time tonight and like 13 minutes of podcast time tonight, which is like
Just 2 minutes.
podcast to playing time ratio is way off right
Stop.
now.
Yeah, I'll say I've had a lot of hope for him as a player, and I had a certain vision for him that's not playing out right now, and I do hope that he can get back on track with what I think he could be here. But you would
Yes.
rather see a guy make the most.
I was
of
trying
the
to give him
situation.
credit. I didn't mean to pile on.
No, I get what
We
you're
just want to
saying.
throw up a stat
No, but
line
now
here
we're
for
now we're
everybody.
now we're highlighting his stat line a little.
Well, no, I'm
too
just
much
putting the
of my
stat
own.
line up. Thank you, ZP, for doing. This is our lower third stat line. So we got 12 minutes, 0 0
I
0
love
1.
Baylor Scheierman, good friend of the show, but
Hey,
yeah, I
has
hope
A
he
good
can-
friend
nothing
of
to
the
do
show?
with the nothing.
What
to
makes
do
somebody
with
a good friend
the
versus
person.
a friend?
He's been on.
Yeah.
Okay, so
he-
Jordan's a friend of the show.
Yeah.
what makes
yeah.
what makes him a good friend? Noah, he will like thumbs up the text like that. That's like that's
Ooh,
all
I
we
need a
can
thumbs
have.
up.
Yeah,
like
but it's
a
better than
passive
just getting left
aggressive.
on red, right? It's better than getting left on red. Actually, I don't even know if it is.
There's the Scheierman segment. Now, closely related, and I said this on Celtics Daily yesterday or today. I think it's time to give Ugo a start. Like it's getting to that point. And again, didn't do anything.
Isn't he the
too
perfect bench
spectacular
guy
in this
though?
game.
He's just the energy guy right now off the bench, Bobby.
Yeah, but I feel like night to night, he's giving you the most out of those guys at this moment. And if you want to let the Walsh thing go for a little longer here, that's fine. Like I thought the starters in the last game got off to a great start and they lost. The starters in this game got off to a horrible start and they won. So there's no rhyme or reason necessarily to who's playing the 4 and where the minutes are going. But I just feel like he's doing so much every night, and Walsh is starting to tail off a little bit of his impact that you do have to affirm, in my mind, what Ugo's doing every single day here. And, maybe trying to light a little bit of a fire, motivation under Walsh. And I do worry a little bit with Walsh, like how he would handle a move like that. But what are you seeing from Walsh recently, Noah? I know he's had the
Daniel's
illness
been
here
nice.
and foul trouble and some obvious reasons why he hasn't had as much of an impact, at least statistically, as he did in the week or two prior. But it's just strange to me right now, whether it's the foul trouble
Jesus.
or in this game, maybe matchups, that they're just going away from him and going to other guys and switching up these rotations as the game goes on.
Yeah, it's funny because I think Jordan's a really confident guy. Everything I've heard about him is he's been very confident in his skills and ability to be out there. He seems a little bit like Josh in the sense that he sometimes just it feels like his confidence does waver on the floor. Like early in this game, first couple possessions, he missed a rebound. I think he fouled. Like he just made a couple of mistakes that he was a step slow, like a little bit low energy. And it's not like I think he started this game being like, oh, I don't really care about this one. I'm going to be lazy. Like it's not that at all. But
He's
the
been
same
sick.
way
That could be a factor.
maybe that's a part of it. But like I think he's just not in a great flow right now, whereas he was in a phenomenal flow a couple of weeks ago with both on the offensive end, but also on the defensive end, where all of a sudden he's picking up these like Hall of Fame players, and he's like, I'm going to lock this guy up, and he was, just like guys go and get in slumps from a shooting standpoint. I think it can happen to you even if you're not a high volume 3-point shooter. Like I think he's experiencing that a little bit, where he just doesn't have that same pep in his step that he had a couple weeks back. So I don't want to bury him. Like, I don't want it to be like, oh, he had like great month and then he had a couple of rough games and that's it. That's the end of the Jordan Walsh experiment, because I do think that it was a big enough sample to be genuinely excited about what we saw. But Joe, like you said, Joe wants to win games, right? If the season was about Jordan Walsh's development, he would have played 35 minutes tonight. But once he started the game the way that he did, I was like, oh, I think this is going to be another night where Jordan gets yanked pretty early here. And Ugo came in, and Joe didn't give Ugo an extended run either. Like there really wasn't a guy today that he really stuck with. Like there have been a lot of games this season where there's one guy that comes in and he's like, okay, that's the 35-minute game guy. But this is part of being an NBA player, right? It's about being consistent. And so far, all of those guys have struggled to be consistent.
None of those guys have earned any more than what they're getting. But I will give Walsh this: when he did come in later in the game, and I thought he was a lot more active and energetic.
He was definitely
had that
nice putback dunk.
Yeah, that putback, kind of a dunk, right? But
yeah, dunk
just good activity, and that's really all Mazzulla really wants to see from these guys. You
want to keep rolling with them,
rotating fifth guys. Honestly, if you're winning games, I'm probably not going to change it right now. I like Hugo just as much as you guys do, and just as much as anyone else who's watched him play. I understand what he gives this team, and I feel like we sometimes get hung up, and Noah's probably said this, that we get hung up on who's starting more than, who's closing or who's playing, 25, 30 minutes. I think ultimately Hugo will get the important playing time. And I think we got a comment earlier on this that he should have been closing the game tonight. So I don't know if it matters more who's starting and who's closing. Because I think that's when, at that point in the time, who Joe Mazzulla trusts. He may not always know how things are going to start off, but by the end of the game, he's going with the players who he thinks are going to give him the best chance to win that game in crunch time or whatever it is. So that's what I'm really more interested in seeing. Tonight we kind of robbed of the crunch time because the Celtics pulled away sort of in the last few minutes there. But I think you did see a lot of Hugo, right? And he was doing a lot of the things that you want to see him do out there as a rookie. And is he plus minus leader now of all rookies? Is that what I saw?
Yeah, he was.
It was a few games ago. I'm sure he still has it.
So yeah, I think they're putting him in positions to succeed out there with the players that he's around. I don't know that he needs to start now just because of that. I think it's working for him. He's a young kid. There's no reason to just thrust him into the starting position just because you think he's earned it. I don't think that's how Joe Mazzulla thinks. I think he just does what he thinks is best for the team, and
for sure. And they are playing him at center a little bit now too.
I just don't know if there's any reason to like propel him into that role. And then what? So that he can have a rough game and then everyone says, get him out of there. I just don't know if it's necessary.
Yeah, I know, and I do think there's a case to maintaining what you've done with Walsh because I think they're 14-5 now with that starting lineup, Noah. So it's worked, and I think
Yeah, it's
he's been
working.
effective more often than not. And you were expecting a downturn to some degree. How does he handle it? I think it's fair to let him play through that to some degree, but there's also open competition here, and I think you can only have so many games of Ugo playing outstanding and Walsh not playing as well, and just continue to roll that out every time. So I don't know. That's
And this
just a
is-
gut feeling I have that that's going to happen at some point.
Well, if Walsh
This
keeps
is-
fouling early on, then he's going to force the hand anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry, no.
Right.
No, sorry. I opened up another tab because I'm looking up the minute distribution in the second half. Jordan played 3 minutes in the second half.
You're going
Sam
away
played
from-
5. Baylor played 7. Ugo played 7. It really was kind of an even split. Like it wasn't one guy was shouldering the bulk of responsibilities. I mean, Derrick, Payton, Jaylen obviously played the heaviest load there. Anthony played 17. So they kind of relied on him a little bit more as well.
We should
But
talk about him, by the way.
Let's talk about him.
yeah.
I got a super chat right here. Oh, I'm sorry. It was Simons. They said Simons needs to close out games. He's clutch, but hasn't been able to showcase it a lot. So I take it back. It was not Ugo. Somebody right here, Danny G7, thinks that Simons should be in there for those closeout situations. Thoughts?
He should if he's playing better in a game, no doubt.
Yeah.
Noah.
I have no problem. I agreed. I mean, I think it just depends on the
Let's continue
situation.
Simons.
They had some Derrick, Payton, Anthony lineups today as well in the second half that we haven't seen as much of.
Yeah.
That's where the minute distribution went at times. So if it makes sense to
And
pull
good-
that out, I mean, now you have 4 ball handlers on the floor.
And that would be great if you could play that a little bit more. They tried that early in the season. It's not quite there. I've compared that to the year they had Hayward, Kemba, Smart, Brown, and Tatum. Those are your best 5 players, but you couldn't play all 5 of them at the same time. Like Simons is one of their 5 best players, but you can't really do Brown, Queta, Simons, Pritchard, White necessarily. So it's tough. And if they can get back to that a little bit, all the better. I think we lost Jimmy. And yeah, I don't
is
know.
it losing Jimmy or is it Jimmy leaving? I
don't
can't tell. It feels
Who knows?
intentional.
But where are you at on him coming out of this game? What allowed him to be so effective tonight, you feel like, Simons?
I think his decision making has just been better. Like if you go back, and I haven't done this as much of late, but early in the season I was going back and literally like rewatching all of his plays on offense and defense. And he just had a lot of mistakes, and it makes sense because he's new to the system and he was adjusting from being the number 1 guy with the playing for a team that he had. Do you remember I asked him earlier in the season, like, about defensive drills, and he was like, I never did defensive drills in Portland. Like we never really learned defense. And so there was a learning curve. And here we are now. It's December. It's not like he's been playing for the Celtics for 2 years. You know, it's not even halfway point to the season. And he's just playing smarter. He's playing better on the defensive end. He's holding his own a little bit more. I think you're seeing him pressure the ball. It's not like he's racking up steals or deflections the way that Derrick White is, but like he's holding his own a lot more. And so I think you can afford to have him out there. Tonight, 28 minutes for him. That's, about 8 more than I think than his season average. So he's getting more opportunities in those moments. Then obviously 20 points for him. Hitting, 4 of 10 from 3 is probably the best 3-point shooting performance of anybody tonight. Like that's what he's here for, right? And so he went through a little bit of a slump where he wasn't shooting his best after starting the year really hot. And hopefully now it's all going to come together where the decision making and the defense aligns with his shot making, which is really the thing that doesn't waver as much for him.
And 5 rebounds stands out to me too, because he's defended, he's putting effort on that side of the ball. But the one thing, if you're playing him over a defensive wing like Walsh or one of those guys, you're not getting much rebounding out of him. And to see a slight uptick in that area, I think is a plus because they want everybody to rebound. They need it on the defensive end, certainly. And then offensively, it's that balance to the shooting struggles that they've had that you can go out there and grab an offensive rebound every now and then. So, nice to see them have a bunch of lineups, even ones like this that you haven't seen a ton of. They could pop up down the line. That could help you win a game. And I still feel like with Simons, there's a level he can reach in my mind that we just haven't seen enough of for whatever reason. Maybe it's the fact that there are so many players in front of him. Maybe it's the fact that he hasn't done certain things that they've wanted him to do, so he hasn't been able to play as consistently, or that they just haven't utilized him as effectively as they possibly could here, and maybe haven't put him in some spots where he could have given them a little bit more than another player who was playing in those situations. So I'm not stressing the Simon situation too much. You know how many conversations we had about this early in the season, though, and I think he's settled into a good, comfortable spot, more or less. Especially you look at the plus minus output this month, even with some poor shooting. They've gotten him in good pockets to help them win games, and he seems comfortable with the role he's in right now too, which I think is important. But we know what he's capable of at his best. He is a guy who can score 20 in his sleep. So how can you utilize that more consistently, more effectively, especially when you have needed 3-point shooting? And we've said it over and over again, though. I think if you roll the ball out there and have everybody take 100 shots, he's hitting the most of them out of everybody on the team from 3. And that's important. Like, you stack up all the skill sets in the game. I know there's a lot of different ones, and this team has priorities in terms of what they want here, but 3-point shooting is important. And I think if you can find pockets for him, you take those.
Oh my God. Sorry. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened there.
Late night Jimmy. Come on, Jimmy. You're used to this.
My computer is freaking the F out. What do you say? Are you guys still going on Simons? You are.
Any final Simons thoughts?
Finish your thought. Finish your thought on Simons.
I finished mine.
I don't think I have anything else. I'm curious to see if he'll be here. Trade deadline's a month away. I think there's been a lot of discussion
about his expiring
contract. Yeah, February 5th.
Yeah.
So
I think he's
a lot of discussion around. I hope so. I mean, I don't want them to make any moves to get worse. I understand the luxury tax and all that, the financial side of things, but we'll see. But right now, it certainly seems like it. I mean, when he first got acquired, I think we weren't sure if he was going to make it to training camp, and here we are now. He's become an important part of this team.
I think the question's going to be whether he is part of the team long term. Do they have any hope for that? Is that an interest he has? Like, I think they should have those discussions leading up to the deadline. What does he want? Because give the guy credit. And I know this isn't always important, and they've had some guys come through that this didn't matter as much. Dennis Schroeder, like, they're here for some time and then they're gone. And that could be how the Simons thing plays out. But I've just loved how he's handled it, Jimmy. He has been relegated immensely. And Joe has even admitted it. I think he said straight up at one point, nobody has had to sacrifice this year more than Simons. And I think he has handled it phenomenally. And I've been around him a lot this season. I feel like, I've been able to tap into how he feels about this specifically at times. And he just always says the right thing about it. I know Joe's been impressed.
If later on it comes out that he was like super miserable here, I'm going to be shocked because he has said all the right things, his body language, the on the record stuff, just what I hear just around, like, everybody's thrilled with him. Everybody likes him. And I think that's why Joe went out of his way last week to say he's been flying under the radar. He's been playing really well. He doesn't do that very often, like call out guys by name like that. But I think he feels like as a media, as fans, it's just he's not really been super appreciated because of the expectations that came with his contract and everything.
And that's important. Like, if he appreciates the situation and the winning, he's never won at this level. Probably, like, when you look back on it, maybe early in his career when he wasn't playing much.
He wanted to win. He said that media day.
Yeah, and so listen, you want to make your money, right? And there's not going to be a lot of money coming from the Celtics team toward him. But are there more important things to him than that? Like, is he meshing with this team? Does he see a championship potentially playing here on a cheaper contract? I want them to see this through. And I've been adamant about that since the summer.
We go through this every year with you, man. And every year your heart breaks because the player doesn't take less money to stay here. We've seen it.
But who's giving him money?
I don't know. I mean, we're not going to have that answer tonight, but the point is, the Celtics, he's not going to take a team-friendly deal to stay here in Boston because he likes whatever it is. To be completely honest,
might squeeze a guy like him.
They shot his value down to, practically mid-level exception tier here. After,
that's the peak for him, you would think, yeah.
After, him being a go-to player on a team in Portland that was certainly
Does he want to go back to Portland? Everybody's going back to Portland.
Right, exactly. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think he's a professional, right? So he's not trying to stir the pot. He's going to stay and do the right things, and he wants to play well, and he wants to help the team, and I'm sure he wants as much playing time as he possibly can. But don't know if it's really working out for him the way that he would like it to. I mean, I think we could all, despite whatever the plus minus says over the last month, I don't think the role is exactly what he would like his role to be. And I don't know if that's necessarily going to change when the Celtics get their best player back. So I don't know what the future holds for Simons here in Boston. If I were to bet, I don't think it's him. Certainly don't think it's him here past this season. I don't know what the trade deadline is going to call for or what teams are going to be looking for. I mean, we just got a major injury today in Denver, right? With Jokic being out for 6 to 8 weeks. So the landscape of the NBA can change pretty quickly. Teams' needs change pretty quickly. And when the trade deadline comes along, if there's a playoff team that feels that maybe they're a 6-man type player away or an outside shooter away, maybe Simons does have value as a trade chip to the Celtics at the trade deadline. We'll find out. We still got a little ways before we get there now, but before we leave, Bobby, you hinted at possibly another list.
Yep.
I know there was you a glutton for punishment here because you got some serious criticism for the best player. I don't even know what you're gonna call it, the best players today list, because you won't call it an MVP list.
It was the best players today list.
I mean, sorry, a lot of Twitter chatter over that list, Bobby, but we're gonna let you have it. I think you said you have your all-star starters for East and West right now as of today.
I do. They're right in front of me here, and I'll give you the full teams because I got the full rosters here. And
great.
I'm a little caught up on the USA World thing here that they're doing because you're going to need 16 US players and 8 international players, and they're going to have 3 teams of
It's important
8,
to note.
I suppose. Yeah, so
I hate this.
The way this is going to work
I'm already out
so
on this
wacky.
list.
Well,
I don't like when there's 3 teams.
Listen to this. You're going to hate it even more if you hear this. So the way I have it right now, let me count it real quick. I have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
You have 2 minutes, and then we're out of here.
11, 12. So I have 12 USA players, and that would mean out of 24, 12 world players picked. So what that's going to mean, Jimmy, is you're going to need 4 more USA players. So this list that I have, if this is how it goes, Adam Silver is going to get to pick 4 more American players to play in this thing. So they have
There's
full
going to be
teams.
28 players?
Yeah. So pretty wacky
Why is it
format.
like Americans? Whatever. Let's just go. Let's just do it.
All right.
Give me the
so here we
list.
go. Here's the
and
list.
then Noah, you can be Adam Silver, and you can pick the 4 Americans after.
No, I think Bobby has those too.
No, I don't. So if you want to do that, you can.
No,
so here we go. Do you want me to do it by conference?
Oh, my Wi-Fi.
Do you want me to do it by conference or by the USA World?
By conference.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Okay, yeah, because they're going to name the starters by conference. So here are your Eastern Conference starters in my mind.
Okay.
Jalen Brunson, Cade Cunningham, Tyrese Maxey. I'll give it to Jaylen Brown.
Why do you say it like that?
Why do you say it like that?
I thought about being edgy, but I didn't want to do it.
I mean, if you don't think he deserves to be it.
No, he does. He does. I don't.
No, it sounds like you don't think.
That's not really edgy. That's like rage baiting if you don't mean it.
Who are you going to give it to instead?
Donovan Mitchell's in play alongside Jaylen. Right now, Jaylen is 29-6-4 with a steal, 4
What's
turnovers, 50-37. Maxey's 34-7 with 2 steals, 3 turnovers, 46 and 39.
Very comparable.
He's a lot.
To Jaylen.
I think Maxey's a lot. 30 points a game.
Yeah, I think he's making the All-Star game for sure. I'm not saying he's not.
I'm saying starting lineup lock.
Okay. Well,
so those are
your
my
list.
starters. Jalen's in there. Mitchell can come off the bench. Then I got Jalen Johnson, Karl Anthony Towns, Michael Porter Jr., Scotty Barnes, Jalen Duren. And even though he got hurt today, he's going to miss a bunch of weeks here. I did have Josh Giddey on this list. So he'll probably get knocked out. But yeah, those are my 12 for the East. West, I got...
No Pritchard, no White. That's Celtics are pumping those guys, Bobby. This is the Celtics postgame show here.
No Pritchard, no White. Sorry. White's making up ground, but he's not going to get there, I don't think. But, maybe Noah will pick him for the USA replacements that we're going to pick.
That's true.
Here.
She has 4 picks.
I'm not picking anything.
Come on, Noah.
I'm not participating in this.
Okay, Bobby. continue on. This is riveting.
We
by
got
the way.
Luke. We got Luka. We got Jokic. The starters are easy out west.
Did you say Luke?
Jokic. Luka.
Okay. just
Luke
making
was
sure.
on my honorable mention. No,
Got
I'm just
it.
kidding.
Yeah.
Luka, Jokic, Curry, Shea, Victor are the starters out west. Sorry, Edwards. People were pissed I left Edwards off the top 10 list too. You're great, but you're not there. Edwards
Bobby
is on the
hates
team as well.
Edwards.
Edwards is on the team too. Şengün's on the team. Kevin
course.
Durant, Denny Avdia, Jamal Murray, Julius Randle, and sorry, I'm leaving LeBron off. I'm going Lauri Markkanen.
What?
Clip it. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
That's not a hot take.
Wow.
I don't
leaving
think LeBron's done much
off.
of anything this season. If we're doing it,
He's LeBron, man. You know what? He doesn't want to be there anyways. He doesn't want to play on Christmas. He probably doesn't want to play in the All-Star game. So you probably just did him a favor. I'll tell you what, that West team sounds pretty nice compared to the guys I just heard.
It's not West East. So here's the rosters. The world team's going to be Giannis. Karl Anthony Towns is playing with the world team, he said. Josh Giddey
Where's
would
he
be on
from again?
world. DR.
Dominican Republic.
Got it.
Luka, Jokic, Shea, Victor, Şengün, Denny, Jamal Murray, as well as Lauri Markkanen. And then the USA teams, there'll be 2 of them because this is like a tournament, I guess.
Wow. Okay.
Randall, Durant, Edwards.
How do they break
Curry.
up the USA teams?
I don't know. Good question.
Jeez.
And then, like I said here,
freaking mess. Damn it, Silver.
I actually think you're going to need 3 USA replacements. I mislabeled one of these. So I guess next up, since Noah doesn't want to pick them, would be LeBron, obviously, right? Like they're not going to leave him out.
Chris Paul.
Chris Paul. Wow. Shots fired.
Celeb
Adam
sighting.
Silver might.
Chris Paul from the couch. Chris
drama?
Paul's watching the podcast right now being like,
Why
did I
not?
say name to the All-Star team?
I
pick
saw
for the
somebody on
drama.
Twitter say that. I'm going to be honest.
You stole it.
We'll take it.
I'd
We
say
like
one-
that from Noah. Get in the mud a
I didn't
little
want
bit.
to-
We like that.
I didn't want to steal it.
Maybe one of the Thunder, like Chet or Jalen Williams. And then, I don't know, does Derrick White could Derrick White be
How
Adam
about
Silver's
Keyonte
place?
George after what I've seen in 2 games from this guy? He should be a
Why
star.
not? He should be on honorable mention for sure.
I'm pretty sure you missed some like somebody.
Ooh,
Who?
who did he miss?
I don't know.
Come on. Tell him.
Kawhi?
Chat, who did he miss?
Kawhi wouldn't be a bad choice. He's rolling right now.
It's
Why?
like, why?
Mr. Tree Planter himself? I haven't heard that name since
If we're gonna do rankings, I need a heads up on these things. I can think about it.
I didn't know we were doing
Bam?
this either, Noah. I didn't know we were doing this.
Yeah, I called it at the last second.
Was
'cause there's
Norman
one
Powell on
round
the
ahead.
list?
No.
Norman Powell is
Wow.
playing for Jamaica, so would he be
Mhm.
World or would he be USA? I don't know. I love the Town shows World, by the way.
And
Why
people
not?
are hurt.
People are
A lot of
hurt.
people are gonna be hurt.
I didn't take that into account. We'll see where they're at later. But yeah, I could see Giddey not being in this thing because
Yeah.
he already tailed
Jokic
off
is definitely
a
not
little
gonna
bit.
be able
You're
to
not going to
play.
see Jokic anymore.
Man,
Actually,
really?
not.
I was wondering that earlier in my mind. Yeah,
You
because
think
we're like
they'll
a
rush
month
him
and a
back
half
for the
away.
All-Star game? Yeah, that's smart.
I mean,
I guess yeah.
well, we've been at some of these All-Star games now, and I don't think there's a star who cares less about this thing than Jokic. So yeah, I would say
Yeah.
he will not be there.
Maybe racing horses somewhere for the next 2 months.
Well, LeBron's gonna be at this thing one way or another, so it doesn't matter that I left him off the list here.
You think?
Matters to us, Bobby. We care. But yeah, you're probably right. You probably will be.
Do you like my list,
All
Jimmy?
right. I like the list. I want to update it. I want to do this every maybe 3 weeks from now. We'll do it again. How about that? We'll get your updated list and see what changes you've made.
And who you got? USA or World?
World
Stick with
2.
USA.
You are USA 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't even know what the teams are.
That's
yet.
why the vibes are off. How could you have 2 USA teams?
I don't understand that. I'm gonna have to look into that.
Are you
Yeah, I
Bobby.
agree.
I feel like you're off. Something's off here. Something's off. It's not.
That's what I read this morning, so I guess what I read was wrong if that's the case.
Yeah, we'll have to have Amit delete this whole segment if you were wrong. But anyways, that's it for us. I want to say Happy New Year to you guys, Noah and Bobby, and to all of our amazing listeners, viewers, whether it's on the YouTube show or on the podcast format, Spotify, Apple Pod, whatever it is. Another great year of the Garden Report. We appreciate everybody who keeps us going. We wouldn't be screaming into internet oblivion if there wasn't anybody on the other side. At least,
Real quick, what was your
sharing.
favorite memory of the year, Jimmy?
Jesus, dude, I don't know. I mean, tell me to think about every day for the last year and on the spot.
Oh, Celtics.
Favorite Celtics memory? I don't know. Do you have one?
The Luke game. 7
In the
blocks.
playoffs.
They win game 5. Everyone's chanting Luke. How could it not be that?
That's like that game must play out in your head like every
I
single
went
day,
back and
man.
watched the highlights a couple weeks ago. By the way, Jimmy, we are
Bobby, it's the way you emphasize the Luke chants.
the Luke
Yeah.
chant.
I don't remember people chanting Luke.
You don't remember that?
I don't think that even really happened.
Oh my god, you sound like Joe Sway. Joe Sway said that years ago too. I didn't hear that. They were definitely Luke chants.
Maybe there was like a couple of sporadic Luke chants.
He was
I'm gonna
blocking every
say-
shot all game.
I know
Do you
he
have
was
a favorite
awesome, but
memory this year,
I'm
Noah? By the
saying
way,
that- I'm saying that you being like the best memory
This-
of 2025 was the Luke chants. I'm like, what chants?
Yeah, the Luke game. Like everyone's like, oh yeah, I remember the Luke game.
by the way, Jimmy, we got like 10 days of Luke here. 10 days till Luke Cornet makes his return to TD
We
Garden.
need to do like Amit should do like a little like advent calendar of just like days until Luke. And it's just like 10
Amit's
little,
right. Amit said I was right. There were Luke chants.
10 little doors, and every door you open up is like a Luke highlight. I like that. I thought about my answer.
Okay.
No offense, Bobby, but my favorite Celtics related moment for me personally was covering the Celtics Lakers game this season. Noah was there. We sat in the court side. We did a little post game show. I don't really cover games anymore, so that was a fun little thing that was different for me to do. So
I'm glad you enjoyed.
yeah, thanks for making that happen. Appreciate that.
Our stand-up took a lot of tries.
Me and your stand up?
Yeah, you don't remember? Because you were trolling too hard.
Okay, yeah, I think I remember that. But it was
Noah, do you have a
but
favorite
we
memory
nailed
this
We
year?
did nail it.
I think the Luke chants. No, honestly,
Yeah.
that game was special. You know, I think it.
You can't steal my
hind-
answer.
I know I was gonna say that. I mean, I was gonna call it the Luke chant game, but I was gonna say, you know, they just lose Jason Tatum. It was obviously just a devastating moment for the franchise, for the city, and I remember we were out there before the game, and you remember how many fans had like signs for Tatum, and they were all it was very emotional, like from a fan standpoint. And then they come out there, and you know, Jaylen has one of the best games I've ever seen him play. Luke has this incredible game, and even though I think it was realistically, they were probably not going to make a deep playoff run after that, but it was like one last moment of that era at home in front of that really incredible crowd, and it was a special game. And then they go out and have a terrible game 6 in Madison Square Garden. That was a
Last
low.
Luke game ever at the Garden. Went out with a bang.
I didn't know that was going to be the last Luke game. I thought Luke was going to come back.
Me
So
too.
We all
I didn't know what we
kinda
had
hung
until
up
we
and
didn't
hope.
have it anymore.
Well, get ready. Luke
Cornet
chants
always
next
seemed to go.
Saturday. Spurs,
Next
Celtics.
Saturday.
Are you giving a
26.
keynote?
Yeah. Bobby's gonna have Bobby's got something planned.
They should involve you in the return planning. Like if there's gonna be like a little video, they'll have a video for him, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I'll talk to.
Okay.
I'll
I
talk
think
to my
they
buddy who
weren't
does
big
the
on the-
pictures.
They weren't big on the videos for like Malcolm and Rob and those guys. Grant, certainly. We remember that one, Jimmy. but
Yeah. No, Luke, they'll do something for sure.
but no, I think all the championship guys are gonna get the full
Yeah.
big like
Mm.
they all
They should.
mattered a lot. Porzingis, Holiday, Horford certainly.
It's
Luke,
weird how
they're
it's
all
all
gonna get
late in the
huge tributes.
season. We're almost
Yeah.
halfway through the season, and we haven't seen any of those guys.
And hopefully, I mean, you're always crossing your effing fingers that there's no injuries because every time they play someone this year, they seem to be out who you want to see. So pray
I know,
that
I was
these
watching
guys are all
Rob last
healthy.
night on TV. I was like, where was this Rob 2 nights
No
ago?
Rob, no Drew. They're gonna miss Jokic next week. They didn't see Giannis.
Ugh.
They didn't see Zion.
Our
They
life
didn't see Ja.
sucks.
I'm getting sick of this season.
Turning into a cupcake schedule. I don't know if these guys are real 19 and 12. We might have to have that.
They're
It's
not
like the
19 and 12.
or whatever they are. It's like the Patriots talk now with their schedule. But anyways, as I was saying, thank you for everybody for following along and watching this year. 2026 will be bigger and better than this one, just like this one was bigger and better than 2024.
We're back
wanna
New
give
Year's Day.
quick shout out to John and Sherrod, who couldn't be on the show tonight, but contrary to popular belief, John has not entered like a senior citizen home and is no longer on the show. I think he's just partying. I think he's just doing something fun. He's having more fun than we are.
Did somebody say that?
Somebody said that, I think, in the chat. Yeah, they're worried about him. So, John, if you're people are worried about you, but we'll get him back on the next show. And yeah, we want to say wish everybody Happy New Year, happiness, health into 2026. Get your New Year's resolutions ready for tomorrow. Everybody hit the gym on Thursday, right? That's what we do. We get into shape. So with that being said, Celtics with the what was the score?
129-119.
129-119. They end 2025 as winners. We're all going out as winners. Amit, hit the music.